big topic. So today is the 179th Security Thought Leadership webinar. And the idea of thought leadership is to critique today a security issue in order that we get a better type of security tomorrow. And don't forget that we are not trying to solve the world's problems today. We're trying to understand what the issues are and how we might think differently about them. And the topic today is business improvement districts. Are they examples of security shining or security failing? Business improvement districts, a focus on a business environment. This is surely the ideal opportunity in which security can thrive. In fact, if security can't prove effective there, then what chance has it of proving it in the broader business environment? Well, to debate these issues and to examine them in more detail, I have three panelists, all experts, all involved in business improvement districts. As usual, what we'll do is we'll invite them to introduce themselves. And once they've done that, I'll invite each of them to make an opening statement, 3 minutes, in which they get to say whatever they want to say about this subject matter. So without further ado, let's go and meet our panelists. So first of all, Carol, very, very warm welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Carol. I'm the security manager for We Are Waterloo Business Improvement District. I've been in the security industry mainly for 20 years. I've worked in critical natural infrastructure, the events industry, retail, and this is my third business improvement district. I have qualifications in security management, security retail management, and terrorism. Thanks, Martin.
Thanks very much indeed, Carol. And from London all the way up to Bonnie, Scotland. Grant, please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon all. My name is Grant Stewart. I am the Senior Projects Manager for the Central Edinburgh BID City Centre. I've been in the role now since 2011 and progressed through the BID that way. We work a lot with Police Scotland, etc. And we have a few initiatives that we'll talk about as we go through the webinar.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Grant. Look forward to hearing those. And finally, Chris. Chris, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Chris Turner. I'm the chief exec of a trade body in Britain called British Bids. We look after the 334 bids in Britain, and we run training, research, webinars, and the like, and are very involved in some of the national strategic issues around crime and business crime reduction partnerships.
Chris, thank you very much indeed. Looking forward to hearing from all of you. Don't forget, if you've got a question, please use the question and answer Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Do get your questions in early and I'll endeavour to incorporate them. But first of all, let's hear what the panelists have got to say. 3 minutes when they get to say whatever they want to say about this subject matter. Without further ado, let's go to Carol. Carol, your opening statement, please.
Yes, Martin. Well, I'm going to go for the bad first. So it can be both. It can be, depends on the business improvement district, you know, how bad security is perceived or how good it is, you know. If you were in a business improvement district, you will see, when you go on their website, you will see that they promote security. But mainly, their security is the act e-learning, you know. They don't have a security manager, and if they do, it's a new thing. You know, a lot of bids hire in a third-party security supplier for, as they call it, wardens or street security patrol. Basically, that's what they are. You know, it just depends. Again, it depends who's running it. I will say the good things about the bids with the promoting the security industry is definitely it's a security operations, but then it can go into, I can see it moving into the strategic role, mainly because of the new legislation that's coming into effect in the UK called Martin's Law. That's where I have seen like businesses coming to me already and asking me to do a risk assessment, threat assessment, security survey. You know, we can provide a crime analysis report, you know. Then you can also go into where something is happening, so we can provide them with crisis management or business continuity, you know. I see security in a bid is good intelligence for the businesses, good crime intelligence for giving them what's happening on the street, you know. And how we do that is providing a frontline security service. You know, the frontline security officer is what the public perceives as security, Martin. As we all know, it's the window for the security office, for the security industry, you know, and how they are perceived by the public is what the security industry is, you know. And we have to provide training to them, and that is basically what we need to do in the security industry, is provide the training to the frontline security officer. You know, we facilitate training to the businesses, security training to the businesses, because that's one of the things that they came to us about and asked us, can you provide security training to our frontline staff? Well, I started to put out a program for that. But we'll go back to the frontline security officer, because that is what they are trained on, and what they give intelligence on is what they see the business see as security. And I'll leave it there. Thanks, Martin.
Thank you very much indeed, Carol. From overseas, this was just to say Martin's Law is a new proposal. It hasn't actually, not a law yet, in which after the Manchester bombing, there were great criticisms of the fact that in a public arena, security was shown to be poor. So was policing, by the way. So was the fire brigade, by the way. And the government are reacting by passing legislation saying you must risk assess your premises if public are gathering there. Not happened yet, but it's in the pipeline, they say. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Don't forget question and answer button at the bottom of your screen, which we'll do after the third panelist, but it's the second panelist. Grant, your opening statement, please. 3 minutes, up to you.
Thank you very much, Martin. Yeah, I'll go to the discussion point. Is security play an enhancing role in the bid? I would say definitely. In the Central Edinburgh's bid, that's in our top 3 priorities. A quick thing, what we do, we have a few retail security schemes. We work with Police Scotland. We work with the jewellery sector in a loan for high-end jewellers. We had a little bit of a problem a few years ago. Yes, we fund the police bid officer, which has been an absolute fantastic success. And I would say for the businesses, it's taken a while for them to be involved with us. I think in a bid area, you get a lot of apathy, or they don't know you're even there. That's one of the big concerns that we have. Is getting out there and talking to them, getting them involved with us, find out what we do. It's not just security as a bid. The bid covers a wide area of like between events, getting people in, etc., etc. Yeah. So I mean, just in the main question, as a bid in security, do they marry up? Definitely, I would say it's a must, and it's not only just your retail crime; it's antisocial behaviour, your graffiti, your gun busting, etc. Make the place look nice, and it gives it a sense of safety. It can be difficult to do, which it is sometimes. If you're in a city centre the size of Edinburgh, a lot of people travel through it, a lot of visitors, and we've done many a sort of survey on what they think of Edinburgh city centre bid, and we get a great response back. 87% on the last survey we've done found the Edinburgh city centre to be safe, which is great for the retailers, hospitality, hotels, and office staff as well that come into the area. If they feel safe, it makes a much more better environment for everybody to work in, play in, visit, etc. Yeah, so that's my opening statement, really. Martin, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Grant. And we'll come back to some of those issues that you and Carol have raised, I'm sure, at the end. Do get your questions in, bottom of your screen, question and answer now. We had Carol from Waterloo, a specific bid in London. We had Grant from a specific bid in Scotland. We've now got Chris speaking, who's got a more general oversight. Chris, over to you. 3 minutes from your thoughts on this, please.
Martin, afternoon to you. Good to see you all. Yeah, I run an organisation called British Bids. We look after the 334 business improvement districts in the British Isles. Remember, there are bids all over the world now. I mean, over 1,000 in America, 50 to 60 in New York, 65 in London. So business improvement districts are all about businesses coming together and essentially making the world a better place. So that as Grant was saying, they do everything from events to street cleaning to hanging baskets to strategic issues to building in some cases bridges and subway stations and everything else. And clearly crime is a big issue for most business improvement districts. I mean, my data in Britain suggests that round about 65% of all bids run crime reduction partnerships, or they run pub watch, or they run shop watch, and the best bids, it's phenomenally well joined up. So in the best bids, to take one example, you know, we've got an ex-police officer running a crime reduction partnership. We've got video cameras across the town. We got street rangers trained by the police. We got the police and the PCSOs involved with that. We got a linking through a radio system whereby every shop and pub and bar in the town has got a link in to an online computerized system where photographs are shared, GDPR constraints and so on. So in the best examples, it really works well. It doesn't always work well, and that's because some bids, of course, are very small. I mean, there are some with as few as 70 small retail units. It may not work well because in some bids, of course, retail is not a major part of the bid. So we've got other bids where, you know, officers and security are less important. So there's a whole range of options. But what is happening in the last couple of years, most certainly, is that bids are starting to talk to each other, work together, have information sharing agreements with the police. The police in England, through a fairly key strategic decision a year or so ago, have set up a crime reduction partnership group chaired by an academic. And there's a beginning of a coming together now about rules, regulations and standards, which are taking time. I accept that, but we're fairly confident that at least 30 to 40 of our bids are now fully accredited, they're trained, they're recognised by their local police forces, and they're a key part of the security business of their towns and communities. There's a way to go, and most certainly we recognise that, but nonetheless, I think we are on the right direction of making sure business improvement districts work together to ensure that their crime reduction systems are second to none.
Chris, thank you very much indeed. Well, look, fascinating. And as you can see, many questions coming in. Let me start off with you, Carol, and a question from you. And it's a question from Emmeline Taylor, who is a academic and a researcher on this subject matter. And the question is, what is you mentioned intelligence in your opening remarks. But what metrics do bids use to determine the level of risk and the security need? I mean, one of the problems is crime stats from police, recorded crime stats are known to be deficient. Is there a better way in which you can measure the problem so that you can present the problem to business and therefore the solution, or are you dependent on what the police say? Carol first.
No, Martin, we're not dependent on what the police say. We take intelligence from each business and provide that to the other businesses in the area. So for an example, if there was a bag theft, we'll provide intelligence that this bag theft happened and where it happened, at what time it happened, and we'll provide it to the businesses. So, and then we can also provide them with a photograph, obviously GDPR compliant, of the known bag theft person that done it, the offender that done it. So we are not provided that we're not reliant on the police. No, Martin, we're not.
Okay, let me come to Edinburgh. Grant, this issue about how you present the problem. I mean, how you define what the need is. I mean, presumably that's a precursor to getting business engaged, to say we have these circumstances, this is why security is important, this is why we need to engage you. Is that process difficult or easy? And what data or metrics guide that conversation?
I would say the process at the beginning was fairly difficult to get everybody involved with as Carol said, the GDPR aspect of it and sharing that information. I mean, that was pre me being in Essential Edinburgh. That all kicked off in 2009, 2010. We run for Intel, we have a info@security checkout. That's basically an email-based system that we have 180 retailers on that within the area that send us an email. We then doctor it up, put it on a PDF, send it out, and that goes out to, at the moment, 216 email addresses. As you can imagine, there are multiple security within our business. The Police Scotland supply us with stats, but it's taken as a city centre stat, i.e. Ward 11 for us, which is bigger in our bid area. So we get stats that actually don't quite, it's not specific to our, as I call it, our bubble. You know, we work within that bubble. But I would say over the years, getting the businesses involved is becoming easier. They understand the importance of the intel that they receive. As Carol said, they'll send out a bag theft. We do a lot of retail crime. And today alone, I've sent out 8 checkouts to all the businesses within the city centre. And that is a funny way to gauge it. People think if you get more checkouts, you get more crime. Now, I don't see it that way. If I get more checkouts, I get more communication between the businesses. You know, so they're sharing between each other. It's not because I got 1,000 checkouts this year. If I get 1,500, I'd be happier because it means they're talking to each other, you know, and the communication aspect of it.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. On this issue, I mean, I think Emily's point is how do you know if a bid has made a difference on security? Is there a methodology? Is there a guidance to bids to say this is how you do it? It's the Holy Grail, I suppose, Chris. You're on mute, Chris. You're still on mute.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, there we go.
All right, now.
Yeah.
Great question, as you'd expect, really. And I think it's intriguing. What has happened in the best bids, the ones that we know about, we work with closely, is that as the bid has got more organised, it's put more people out on the street. It's put, whether they're rangers or security staff is immaterial. Those rangers are then talking to the crime people in all the retail stores. They're linked together with cameras. They're linked together with radios. And of course, what instantly happens is that crime goes up, because you now have a group of people on the street who are reporting everything. And for us, that's been one of the most intriguing things, that you put in a good system and crime quite rightly goes up, because more stuff's being picked up, more's being reported. That's allowing some of the national players, and by that I mean the natural big retailers, to say, well, if the bid's out there sorting out this crime, why should we be involved in it? So there's been 1 or 2 stories in the UK, most certainly, of natural retailers pulling out of the crime agenda completely and saying, we're paying a bid levy, let them get on with it. So I think the matrices are quite interesting. What is intriguing, and this is entirely anecdotal, but in my journeys around bids across the country, within any small business community, there are broadly a group of characters that have been appearing in crime data sets on and off for decades. The police know them, the bid know them, they're talked about, they're part of major extreme groups of organizations coming together and say, we will deal with these. So this is not an issue of thousands of people. This is generally an issue of quite small groups of people. And bids are now starting to share that data amongst themselves. So at a regional level, bids are saying, here are my group of people. What about your group of people? And very often, these are people who are troubled. They're people who've got drink problems. They're out in the streets. Anecdotally, again, we've done some research on this. A lot of them are ex-squaddies. They're people who've left the services. And they're very addicted, and they're stealing for a whole bunch of other things. So these are not gigantic, you know, mafiosi. These are actually quite complicated characters that need to be looked after, and we need to join that up. Recognize it's a crime reduction problem, but also make sure that the nationals and the police and ourselves and social services are all working together to make our towns safer places, rather than seeing this as a sort of stick thing the whole time.
Okay, really interesting. Thank you. Let me build on that and come to you, Grant. In fact, you led me in very nicely, please. Thank you very much indeed. But Ray Maskell has asked a question about the police and bids sharing information. It's a bit of the Holy Grail again, police and bids working together. Does that happen, and does it happen well? And I just also a question I got in advance from Mark Rowe, and it's about the role of bids in working together, and this point about how much bids collaborate with each other and how much they can collaborate with the police? I'll ask you all this question because it's a big, big deal. So 2 questions in one. The question about collaboration with the police and then collaboration with other bids. Grant, let me come to you first.
Yeah, on the first point, collaboration with the police, we in 2018, on our last ballot period, had a good relationship with Police Scotland. And talking to the inspector at the time, we had heard about a scheme called a bid cop. So through lots of negotiation for a few months, we decided to invest in that bid cop, and it started in 2018. That now is run, and we are in again a reballot period this year to 2023. Now that gets you a seat at the table, basically, you know, because you've got an in-way into the police. Even though, I mean, the inspector at the time, he is now chief inspector, so he's gone up the ladder. So we have a point of contact quite high up in the police. So it makes that intel and communications great. I mean, things happened yesterday. So I was chatting to an inspector last night about something that happened in Edinburgh. So we've got that connection, and it's great. If you remind the second point again, Martin, quickly.
It's about bids working together.
Bids working together, yeah, okay then. We, every now and again, get a call from, say, like Putney Bid or something like that, what you do and how did you get on with that one? And it's strange because, I mean, as for myself, I get back to them straight away. And instead of an email, I would do a Teams call or a Zoom call or something like that to get them. But sometimes they never get back to you. You know, they ask a specific question and you think, yeah, I can answer that. I can help you out. Or maybe you can help me out with something. And I feel, I don't know what Chris thinks of this, but I know that British Bids and same at STP in Scotland is trying to pull them all together, but sometimes they're small teams, you know, and they don't have that time to spend, you know, that they've got to go. I mean, the certain bids in Scotland has got one bid manager and that's it, you know, and how do you juggle all those balls up and down and then try and get good practice from somebody else in another bid area? It's a difficult one. For ourselves, it's easier. We're a bigger team. You know, we've got Roddy Smith, our CEO. He's always chatting to bids. I'm sure he's chatted to Chris quite a few times, and trying to get that partnership in there. I think it's important because you've got learnings to have. I mean, we've got learnings for other people, and I'm positively sure that they can give me learnings on security, most definitely. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Well, now let's come to Chris. Chris, you seem the ideal person to ask. I mean, in theory, this would seem an unqualified good working together. Clearly, in practice, it's not quite as straightforward as that.
It's not straightforward, but it is most certainly what everybody wants. As Grant says, most bids are small. Half the bids in England are actually staffed by one person only, and therefore that one person is looking after 1,000 different things. There are bigger bids where there are 2 or 3 people. In the best world, of course, a bid has some sort of security head, crime reduction partnership head, and those people talk to each other. Most bids have a regional structure now. So in England and in Scotland, there is a sort of South Central group, there's a Greater London group, there's Southwest. The bids come together every couple of months and they talk about everything under the sun. And crime is part of that conversation, but probably not as big a part of that conversation, because actually crime isn't a big issue in some bids. You know, it ought to be. I absolutely agree there, but some bids, the crime levels are not as high as they are in other bids. So bids are sharing. Bids are most certainly sharing with the police. I mean, I think most bids are now working towards formal information sharing agreements with their police forces. Most of them are sharing information with each other and using their computerized systems, whether it's DISC or Literalis or whatever they're using, to share pictures and data, and that data is being shared with the police, being augmented by the police. So in a couple that I'm working with closely, you know, it's picked up by the shops or by the retailers, national retailers. The data is then augmented by the police within an hour or so, and is then back up on the literalistic system and is out to all of the retailers within an hour or so. So we know literally where the difficult areas are coming from and what we should be looking for. So I think it's broadly happening. I just think we need to put perhaps a bit more time into it sometimes. I think the mechanics of it in England particularly, which I know better clearly, there are 2 bodies looking after crime reduction partnerships, looking after standards, producing sets of rules for them. The Home Office is very involved in a set of standards for crime reduction partnerships to make sure that everyone is squeaky clean in terms of GDPR and information sharing. So there's the beginning of a system in there. I mean, I think in a perfect world, we would then be sharing that with the retailers, so that the data they collect would then be fed back into the bid, and that works very well in some places and very badly in others, to do with issues about GDPR and the like. But broadly, I think in most places, the police and the bid are coming together to try and make this thing work as best they can within the constraints of time, computer systems, GDPR, and levels of personal commitment from both the police and the bid community. But there's some great stories. I can take you to bids across the country where just amazing stuff's happening, and I can take you to other bids where actually at the moment nothing's happening at all.
Okay, thank you very much, Lee. Very Carol, to you on this. So are you working with other bids, and have you got a good relationship with the police? And I mean sharing proper information, not just, the Bobby concerned.
Well, definitely we work with our neighbour bids for definite. I know that for a fact. I've only worked, we are Waterloo for 2 months, but I've worked with Paddington Now bid and New West End Company bid. But for sharing information to the police, it's like you always talk about, Martin. The criminals share information when they're in the prison. So why do we not share information when we're the good guys? Of course we do, Martin. I was only there for about 2 weeks, and I set up a joint patrol with the Met Police and the British Transport Police. Last week I sent them an email to the inspector for the British Transport Police, thanking her for her PC. What he's done for me was he set it all up for the next one. That has gone to the chief inspector, and that's how a good news story is. When I was at US End Company, I got a Met Police Commendation Award for detaining a convicted wanted murderer. We're always sharing information all the time with the police. So I've just got a letter from the Met Police today with a known shoplifter that they've sent out intelligence on him, and so yes, we are definitely doing that.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. A lot of questions, so I'm gonna bombard through these. Chris, I'm going to come to you with a question from Keith Nielsen, who was involved with Bolton. And he posed an interesting question, right? Which was, and it sort of slightly relates to your point about the idiosyncrasies of crime stats, because his point was that they started to reduce crime and over 10 years made a dramatic impact. And rather than saying, well done, they turned around and said, we don't need you anymore. Maybe that's because, as Keith acknowledges, they didn't handle it as well as perhaps. I mean, you've got to keep building up the importance of what you do. Have you heard of that before? And is that experience unique? And is it a danger going forward? And does this really point to security hasn't got the action together in terms of speaking the language of business as opposed to speaking the language of security? Chris?
It's a great point from Keith, I have to say, and I can mirror that. Not so much in exactly the way he does it, but what's interesting across the country, as bids get better at sorting out crime stuff, we're finding some of the national retailers are pulling back from providing their own crime and detection in their stores. I won't, because it's embarrassing to the two concerned, but there are two big nationals that have basically pulled out of the crime agenda inside their own retail units. And are saying, if we're in a bid, we're paying £1 million a year into bid levies across the whole country. Why should we pay extra for our staff? And I can't answer that, except to say that a bid is not there to just sort out the crime for one particular shop. It's looking after a whole bundle of things, everything from inward marketing to regenerating vacant spaces. A crime is one of the agendas. And it's absolutely scandalous, I think, that big national retailers are pulling out of the crime agenda just at the time when we need to put as much time and energy into it as possible. And of course, it's most certainly an intriguing marketing problem, which those of us running bids, know instantly. In the run up to Christmas, everyone put in the front of their shops and the stores and by their doors all the stuff that you want to buy at Christmas, which involves sweets and drinks and booze and makeup and everything else just inside the doors. People want wander in, take it and leave. And if that store's not got good crime support within the store, the bid with 3 or 4 staff can't sort that out. There's got to be more joined up. Now, generally, that joining up is absolutely happening. Generally, in the bids I know, the people on the streets with radios are talking to the stores the entire time. So there's a real joined up agenda of video cameras and radio picking up everything within that community. But I'm afraid there needs to be a joined upness from the slightly more commercially minded retailers to say we're part of this fight. We need to protect our staff and our stock to make absolutely sure we're joining up. So it's not quite Keith's point, but it's most certainly the idea that as you get better at sorting out crime, some of the players depart the scene because they think it's been sorted, and it hasn't been.
But Chris, just very specifically, because I want to move on to the next question because there are lots of them coming in. Very specifically, isn't it good for bids if the commercial sector says you're so good, we'll leave it to you, or is this a de facto cop out on their part?
It's completely varied by the agencies. So there are most certainly some that understand the agenda, realise it's long term, that it's joined up, and this is something that's about social change. We must all be part of it, and that's where most people are. So I can take you to groups of national players that are doing great stuff with their store today, but there are most certainly 1 or 2 that are not playing that game and are seeing that once they're paying money into a bid, they should stop doing what they're doing at the moment, and I think that's very sad.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Carol, a question for you, and I'm going to come to St. Grant. Ali Islamland asked an interesting question, I think, and it's this. What are the main risks on the risk register for your bid? What are the main things you're worried about on a security issue, and how do they compare to other major issues? Carol first, what's the main thing?
Well, for our area, it's one of the main things is definitely phone thefts, in the area, phone thefts on bikes or e-scooters. That is one of the main risks. Another main risk is definitely terrorism. We are beside a main hub in London, Waterloo Station. So terrorism is definitely up there. That would be the main 2 risks on our risk register at the moment.
Okay, just out of interest, Grant, same for you. What are the main risks up there in Edinburgh that concern you the most? What worries you the most on security side?
I wouldn't say worry, but as a concern at the moment. Sorry, we have quite a big youth issue problem, antisocial behaviour. It's coming to the top more and more as we do our checkouts, etc. Talk to the police. One of the main reasons for it is probably in Scotland that you can get a free bus pass if you're under 21. So the issue doesn't come from the local residents' youth, it comes from Glasgow, Fife, the borders. They all get free travel into the city centre. They come in and they cause havoc. It doesn't mean after a retailer, they run into the hotel lobbies and just throw things about the place and then jump in the bus and leave. That's probably one of the stuff that's rising to the top at the moment. Retail crime, even though we work heavily with the police and the retailers, it's amazing what doesn't get reported. So we may do quite a bit and report it, but you chat to our local PC and they say, "No, did you get that one, Grant?" "No, I didn't get that one," they say, So, but I think reporting is an issue. As I said earlier on, the more they share, the more crime stats go up, or the more is resolved, or they actually make an arrest and it goes to court. I think that's the youth issue and not sharing. A lot of people, I can't say anything really bad about them because they're levy payers, but they soak a lot of information up, and then it may be they don't share, being that it's company policy, don't tell anybody what we've lost, or they just don't have the time or the resource. A lot of the managers maybe work alone or have an assistant part-time and don't get time to go to that email and quickly send an email and get it to me. Me sitting here just now, I've got 4 emails from retailers that I will, when I finish this, do a checkout for. And that'll be updates from earlier today, yesterday, etc. But yeah, I'd say the main issue at the moment for us is youth antisocial behaviour.
Okay, Chris, question from Simon Chan. And it's about, we've spoken about the police, and he rightly says, what about leaving other services, social services, the health service, education and schools? Youth are a problem, education presumably are a route to get to them. And I guess in a way, we can, as outsiders, think about how it would be great to contact all these. You've already said that in some cases only one person, so it's a matter of priorities. Is the philosophy of in this area we must engage with other partners locally, or is it a bit more businesses are our paymasters, we better make sure we focus on them?
No, I think there's a real philosophy here about communities, about joining up, about businesses coming together. I mean, I love the ATCM's Purple Flag program, which is about a nighttime economy where people come together, all of us. And if you want to get a purple flag in England, which is a safe kite mark for your economy, there's about 40 people around the table. It really is a whole group of folk. What I'd like to say, and I don't want to politicize the agenda too much, but I have to say in England particularly, we've had a decade of absolutely ruthless public sector cuts that have affected the police. Youth disorder is an interesting thing for me, because when I was younger, there were things called youth clubs that the young people went to. They no longer exist. So we've seen a complete reduction of public service support. So the people around the table are getting fewer and fewer in number. They have less and less money and less power. That means probably that bids are having to step into some of these places to do things that weren't done before, because there's no loot. But I mean, I spend a lot of my time sitting around with senior police colleagues in my area, and there's a willingness, there's a determination to do the right thing, but there's a recognition that we've had a huge and steady reduction. And some of the local authority services in terms of healthcare and in social services no longer exist. And therefore, we all have to work together very hard to make sure we can sort out some of these problems, which may well be unsolvable in some cases.
Yeah, I mean, you put a context, right? The public sector coming back on expenditure. Businesses are cutting their cloth according to the economic climate where they're pulling out of these things. It's tough out there. It's tough out there. Carol, I've got a question for you. And the question is about, would you say in your case, this Martin's Law, now just to be clear, Tom Reeves got a question. This is a proposed law in which, in response to bombings that have gone on in security and police and other agency failures, the government is considering bringing a law which will make it a statutory requirement to risk assess an environment before public are allowed to gather there. And that would put a statutory obligation on security. It's been seen as a good thing for the security sector. Are you seeing that in very positive light, Sir Carol, or are you sceptical it will ever happen?
Oh, definitely seeing it in a positive light. I was at corporate yesterday, Tuesday, and the Home Office have stated that it's definitely going to happen. You know, it's definitely, they were there themselves and they said it's definitely going to happen. But I will say that businesses that know of it are wanted, but a lot of businesses do not know what it is and what it is going to affect them. The ones that do know are worried what it is going to affect them on. And I have had a presentation with businesses to exactly tell them what is going to happen. But I do see it in a positive light, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to come to you very quickly, Grant. Ali Applebaum has asked this question, an interesting one. Is modern security work in bids really about doing what we see as dealing with threats or dealing with conflict or dealing with disorder issues? Or is it more about customer service, managing public space and people? And I just wonder where the emphasis was. I mean, the different things with different skill sets, with different requirements, with different approaches. Thoughts on it from the sharp end where you are in Edinburgh, Grant?
Oh, it's a mixed bag, Martin. Yeah. I mean, going to points about sharing out and the rest of it, and a lot of stuff that we deal with is a society issue, you know, and we're never going to solve that. And go back to things. Do the businesses? Yeah. I would say they want it. But yeah, I mean, everything like when we go to it, like we have a big beggar problem in Edinburgh. Yeah. So we work with Serenians. We fund 2 caseworkers to go out and help them find, help them with the benefit system, etc., etc. And it brings that off the street. It's the same, like Street Assist will fund for the next 5 years, hopefully. Yeah, but it's a difficult one. I would say businesses, yeah. But again, it's the information to them, you know, what you get to them and how they understand it and break it down. I mean, through COVID, we were just an information portal, basically, you know, everything that came through, it was so difficult to understand. So you try and put it in layman's terms and send it back out again, and hopefully they understand. You know?
Yeah, because Michael White asked the question as whether it's how difficult it is to get businesses involved in those sort of issues. So let me adapt his question to mean that. I mean, is it difficult to get businesses involved in that sort of thing?
Yes. Yeah. It depends. It can be if they're part of the solution. You would say some of them get heavily involved. Other ones will sit back and wait for something to happen, you know, and then you've got to go out and encourage them to come in and get involved. But yeah, I would say businesses would. Yeah, it's difficult, but over the years that I've been here, it's that communication, you know. And you find that if you send out far too much communication, they just ignore it. So you've got to pick your times to when to hit them, you know. And we were sending out like 5 emails a day, and that's cut down to 1 or 2 emails a day. You know, it's let them read it, and we can see the click rate coming in. So we know what they're interested in, and we know what they're not interested in that. So the click rate's not there. You know.
Okay, thank you, Chris. I'm going to have a final question to you, and it's a general question in the sense that Derek Martin has asked whether all bids run banning orders for serial offenders. And I wonder if I could just adapt Derek's question to say, are there some easy wins here for business bids in terms of what they can do, what advice can be given, low-hanging fruit, you could do this and it will be known to have a big impact, or we believe it will be. Your thoughts, sir, Chris? Just I'd like to be brief, we're running out of time.
I think every bid should be part of a business crime reduction partnership. I think every BCRP needs to have police involved in that. I think there need to be shared rules on banning orders and shared information sharing agreements between every bid and their BCRP and the police. And if the bid is very small, which it may well be, then there needs to be help and support, often from the police commissioner, to help those bids get off the ground in terms of getting these things off the ground. When it works superbly well. I'm absolutely about that. I've just
had Patrick Holdaway's asked a question about BCRPs, and you've just answered it for me as well. So thank you very much. Final question to all of you. You've only got 10 seconds. When you're in my shoes, you can ask complicated questions because you're not a panelist. One thing you could do, major magic wand for a bid in terms of improving security, 10 seconds maximum. What would you do? What one thing would you wish for? Carol?
Have a good security provider for the security patrol team.
Okay, good. Grant?
Invest a bit more money into it, I would say.
Yeah, that's the holy grail, wouldn't it? Get more money. Chris?
Have a business crime reduction partnership that involves all of the retailers in every bid area working together.
Panelists, thank you so much. Fantastic conversation. So many questions. I think we did try and cover all the issues that are covered. If we didn't directly cover every single question, we could have gone on, and that's always the sign of a great discussion. Thank you so much. Really, really good news. Don't forget, the copy of this webinar will be on the website tomorrow with a blog that I will write. Just a few final comments from me, if I might, very, very briefly. Just to say that closing date for the India OSPAs, February the 5th. New Zealand OSPAs the 7th of February and Ireland OSPAs on the 27th of February. If you're in those countries, spread the word, get your entries in. And we've got award ceremonies coming up all over the world. 23rd of February, the UK OSPAs, the 25th of March, the India OSPAs, the 14th of April, the New Zealand OSPAs, and the 23rd of May, the Ireland OSPAs. So do get those dates in your diary. If you're in those countries, we look forward to seeing you there. We're also going out to meet you. We're going to be at the security event, one of our big opportunities to come and say hello to us and us to you. We're going to be there. Do come and say hello to us in Birmingham on the 25th to 27th of April. The next webinar on the 9th of February is about whistleblowing. What are the benefits and the dangers for the whistleblower? Do join us on the 9th of February, where we'll be doing it all again. And if you're in the UK, we have a Thought Leadership Summit, our 5th Thought Leadership Summit. In association with NSI, it'll be on the afternoon of the OSPAs, the UK OSPAs. So do join us in London You can find out more on the website. You need to book in, but it's going to be an incredible afternoon, including an interview with a former terrorist about his activities. So do get your name down for that. By the way, Carol on this webinar was the first person to register for that Thought Leadership Summit. Finally, just to say a thank you very much indeed to the panel. Thank you very much indeed to you, the audience. Thank you also to Shrey Singh in the background, who puts all this together and promotes it. Really appreciate it, Shrey. And my final point is what I always end a webinar by saying. The first 178 have been the same. It's going to be the same on the 179th. And that's to say, wherever you are in the world, until we meet again, stay safe.